All right, the opposition leader says Labor remains wary of giving the Immigration Minister the power to strip Australian terrorists of their citizenship. But Bill Shorten says he does support a proposal to revoke the citizenship of dual nationals involved in terrorism. He traded barbs with the Prime Minister in question time today.
The Prime Minister knows that we've already agreed in principle and said so publicly that dual citizens who fight against Australia with a terrorist group should be stripped of their right to be an Australian. So why is the Prime Minister persistently undermining constructive bipartisanship on national security?
Now, I'm pleased, Madam Speaker, that the Leader of the Opposition now appears to be prepared to support it, but if he's prepared to support it today, why did he call it dog whistling yesterday?
The to and fro comes after a week of speculation and leaks about the level of dissent in Cabinet over the citizenship laws. Jonathan, you've written an article for The Drum today on the citizenship debate, arguing that this is not actually isolated. What's your take on it?
I think it's reassuring that there's that much argument in Cabinet.
Right.
Because we're not getting that kind of response to this from the opposition. I mean, the opposition are like rabbits in the headlights in this area. They are terrified of being thought to be weak on national security, whatever that might mean. And I think, somebody who goes overseas to act in terror or is under suspicion of some sort of terrorist activity in this country, there are legal processes that can catch those people. Something like revoking citizenship, that is a very extreme measure. That is right at the end of denial of fundamental Australian liberty to do something like that, and that should not be the gift of an individual politician on suspicion. Right. That should be a thing which goes to a court process, and it's that erosion of institutional authority which is really disturbing about this, to make quick political capital. It makes me feel pretty uneasy. And
you've tracked this erosion over a period of time, is that right?
Well, the piece I wrote today, I quote Chris Evans, who was a Labor immigration minister, speaking back 7 years ago, saying that it made him feel uncomfortable, the amount of authority that was vested in that ministry, that to him it felt like playing God, and he didn't want that. You can only imagine, given the amount of authority that's been given to immigration ministers successively, it's rare amongst ministries to have that kind of authority over really fundamental human issues, quality of life things, decisions around individuals and where they can go, where they can stay, whether they should leave this place or come, or in what circumstances they can stay. It's big stakes.
Right. Now, Rebecca, of course, following up from what Jonathan's saying, at risk of sounding like a self-serving journalist, that leaks can be a great thing to see that there is a well-functioning, robust democratic debate about such things in Cabinet?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I certainly think that the principle of Cabinet solidarity is extremely important, that we can't have really robust policy formation and debate unless people within a Cabinet can trust each other. So I don't like the look of it. I don't think, in fact, this leak, whoever leaked it, if they leaked it to damage the Prime Minister, they did exactly the opposite. And who knows? I don't really think it matters that much at the end of the day. I think it's ironic when Jonathan has written this piece and says that Chris Evans, the former Labor Minister for Immigration, was, soul-searching about his sort of powers as an immigration minister, but doesn't... Here he was worrying about his power maybe to grant or withhold citizenship to someone. In fact, he then went ahead with no soul-searching and dismantled the Howard government's boat policy, which directly led to about more than 1,000 people chancing their luck on the seas. 50,000 people, of whom 1,000 actually died. So I thought it was kind of...
Right.
The point there, Rebecca, on process, though, I mean, this was not a duly considered Cabinet process of deliberation and policy. This was an act of fiat by the Prime Minister that was presented to the Cabinet without a full Cabinet position, that was in advance leaked to the tabloid newspapers as a fait accompli. I mean, there was a complete abandonment of process there, and that's what's driven this leak, is that people within that Cabinet room, sensing the severity of what's being discussed here, being appalled at the absolute lack of process on the part of the Prime Minister.
Well,
it's probably politicking at worst.
But isn't it a bit rich to sort of say that these people were so appalled at that they decided then to leak, you know, and to break cabinet confidentiality? I mean...
Right, look, if I can just bring it back to the core question, LJ, in which circumstances should Australians be stripped of their citizenship? Now, I'm really interested by what appears to be the Abbott principle on this question. We think that anyone who raises a gun or a knife to an Australian because of who we are has forfeited their right to citizenship. What do you make of that?
Well, again, it's an example of Abbott's complete focus on us and them politics. If you're not for us, you're against us. And we see that time and time again. That's the way he operates. Yet we've got the communities that are most involved in these disengaged kids saying we actually need to be more inclusive as a community. We've got the experts saying we need to be more inclusive in the approach that we take. The terror experts are saying, look, there isn't a single profile that fits these people who are going overseas to fight. There are a whole range of reasons as to why people are doing it, and they can become an invaluable asset in terms of actually dealing with the problem. Not all of them, but many of them, if it's managed. So a single brush approach doesn't...
And what does against us mean? Who's us? Who defines
well, exactly.
that?
It's this sort of nefarious black mass that's out there.
Rebecca, what do you think about the citizenship debate?
Well, I think that, you know, the Prime Minister is using that language so that ordinary people can understand what he's talking about. What we're discussing here is the revocation of citizenship of dual nationals. It's not uncharted water. This happens in the UK, it happens in the US. You acquire citizenship through fairly, you know, through bureaucratic processes. It's not held up to some sort of legal scrutiny. And it seems to me, and in both the UK and the US, it's also a decision of a minister or an equivalent who will revoke that. You have the right to appeal, but you appeal from outside the country. And I think we can all look at the example of the Lindt Cafe siege and know that here was a man that national security agencies were very concerned about him. He lied all the way along. And people say, oh, well, the justice system, the judges, they'll protect us. Well, they didn't in that case, and people are very concerned about it. And
they weren't so concerned that they would read the letters he sent to the Attorney General.
Well, I think that, you know, a lot of people raised the alarm, but in the end...
Not the Attorney General, it would seem.
No, but...
Democracy shouldn't be negotiable. You know, Malcolm Turnbull talked about this as being draconian, and it is draconian. Citizenship sits at the very cornerstone of our constitution, and the process of removing citizenship should not be done through ministerial fiat. It should actually be done with the review of a court.